Hi, I'm Laura Poutre, Senior Editor at IndustryWeek, and I'm here with Roger L. Martin. He's an author and leadership strategist, and he's also Professor Emeritus at the University of Toronto, author of, this is his 13th book. It's called A New Way to Think, Your Guide to Superior Management Effectiveness. And Roger has been a leadership advisor to a lot of big global companies, including Lego, which I guess I mentioned first because everyone loves the toys, and then Ford, some big names there, and Procter and Gamble. So we're going to talk about his new book. So welcome, Roger, to the Industry Week Book Club.
Laura, thank you for having me to your book club.
So glad you could be here. So just a quick summary. Your book starts out talking about how it's human nature and common in business to be stuck on tried and true business models. And even to the point where if they don't work, the leaders just do the same thing again, but try harder. And that's not really working. You talk about in the book, and you're also looking at like some dominant business models and suggesting some better alternatives in the 14 different chapters. So did I get that? Is there anything you want to add to that summary?
No, you're right. That's what it was after now 4 decades of advising CEOs and on management and strategy. It's just become apparent to me that folks in the world of business stick with their models for too long. When they don't work, they, in some sense, put the responsibility on themselves to say, "Well, I mustn't have done it right." And I'm sure that's sometimes the case, but more often than not, it's a model that's come into being because it sort of makes some sense on the face of it, but it doesn't actually work. And I'm trying to liberate them from models that don't work.
Right. When did you come to this realization? And maybe you could talk a little bit about why you decide what the circumstances were that made you decide this is a book that needs to be written.
Sure. I mean, I guess probably one thing had a big influence on me. In 2011, I published a book called "Fixing the Game" that essentially talked about how the practice, the model that said we should align the interests of management and shareholders by giving management stock-based compensation started in the late 70s, really accelerated, and was fully the dominant model that all public companies at least viewed that you had to do, wasn't working. It was not producing the outcomes. It was the shareholder returns weren't going up. Right. Volatility was going up in stock prices, was going up. Accounting fraud was going up, and that was 2011, right? That's over a decade ago. And I sort of watched after that and realized nothing was changing. I mean, really, nothing was changing on this front. And I think that part was part of a motivator, that sort of time series, because I've seen this in other things, but in that thing, I said, gee, how many other things do I see as models that just don't work, right? Because what the thought was that, we had this model of alignment. We should, if shareholders do well, a manager should do well as well. And we thought the tool was, or the world thought, I never thought it was, the world thought that you should give them stock-based compensation.
Right. So
what happened? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
I was just going to say what happened is they realized, managers realized that, gee, the way to make a stock price go up is not to improve the performance of the company. It's to improve expectations about the future performance of the company. So how can we do that? We can go to Wall Street and hype the stock. We can use aggressive accounting to hype the stock. That wasn't what what the theory sort of said. The theory said they will make it a better company. And then the most clever CEOs realized that the smartest thing they could possibly do in terms of compensation was the minute they took over as CEO was to say, oh my goodness, things are worse here than I thought, cause the stock to plummet, then get some more options at that lower price to make sure they were still working hard to turn it around, get the stock price back up to where it was when they were appointed, and they would make a fortune on those options or stock units given at the low price, and the shareholders would have nothing to show for it, right? Absolutely nothing. So you have to just think carefully about what your models really do, what behavior they really cause, and then ask the question: is it working the way we thought? And if it isn't, you've got to drop it.
And you gave you just gave the example just for the company value or the share, the company presenting itself to the shareholders, rethinking the way that they were doing things with the shareholders and the stock prices. But can you give us an example, like maybe I know the book is divided into sections, so can you talk about like a culture example, like how?
Well, how about a Great Resignation example?
Yes,
right?
I would love it.
One of the chapters that was written before the Great kind of Resignation plays right on it. It's a chapter on loyalty versus habit. So a model that's out there that says loyalty is this thing that you must seek. It's the most important thing to seek. But the behavioral research that's been done over the last 20 years in brain science says you should think about loyalty as like an iceberg, what you see above the water, and habit is what you what's below the water line is 95%. So habit is unconscious, and loyalty is conscious. So the model is to believe that if let's just say Tide detergent has worked well for you the past 50 times you've used it, Laura, you will be consciously loyal to that, and you'll go back and your conscious mind will say, I should buy some more Tide. It turns out that what's really happening is that your unconscious mind is forming a habit, and your unconscious mind wants familiarity and comfort over anything else. And so, in fact, you have a Tide habit where your subconscious is, when you're walking down that aisle, is saying, is like whispering essentially to you, just get Tide, just get Tide. We know that works. We know that works.
Yeah, I've heard that voice.
Yeah. Don't reach for something else. Get that. Okay. So how does this relate to the Great Resignation? When COVID hit, and by force majeure, because businesses were shut down, people had to work remotely. Remember, you're going to work remotely, right?
Right.
But after 2 years, what became your office to your subconscious was your home, right?
Right.
You roll out of bed, make a coffee, go to your basement or your guest bedroom or your sun porch or wherever you'd set up your home office and essentially go to work. Now, 2 years later, that company says, oh, you must come back to the office. Your subconscious is saying to you, they're asking us to work remotely. So the new remotely is the office, because you're totally used to and comfortable with at home. And the problem with that is that when you have a habit, it has a huge advantage over every other thing you might do.
So how would leaders bring people back to the office then?
By recognizing that they've got to slowly get them to change their habit, not to say by fiat, we can get you to come back to the office, because what happens when you take a habit and not allow you to continue the habit, right? What happens is it goes back to the start line with all other alternatives. A habit is in a 100-yard dash is at the 80-yard line,
right?
And all these companies that are saying suddenly, boom, you have to adopt a brand new habit. They think it's an old habit. That habit is gone completely. A new habit. Everybody's saying, I'm going to reassess, and that's what happens. You're forced to consciously reassess, and at that point, that is sticking with your current job and adopting the new habit of going into this new place called the office is now has to compete against. I'm going to get it if I'm in, I don't know, Greenwich. I'm going to get a job in Greenwich rather than commute to Manhattan. I'm going to join the gig economy. I'm going to take some time off. And
Right.
so there's this huge resignation that's driven by lack of understanding of habit and a belief that it's loyalty that will get you where you want to go. It is flat out, it isn't. And that's why we're having the great resignation, and it ain't stopping anytime soon.
And you talk about ways to, do you suggest ways, a different model then for that to build?
Yeah, you have to build that new habit slowly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So say we have a goal of getting people back to the office in due course, but they'd be much better off saying we're gonna have people do this slowly over a year and build that new habit, then demanded it by fiat. We're now going return to work. That would be one thing. There are other things they could do as well, but to be quick, that would be one thing. And there are companies that are just, being foolish and not doing that, and they're going to lose massive numbers of people like they've never lost before. That's the quantum we're talking about.
Well, thanks so much for talking with us, Roger. I'm glad to have you. And everyone, the book is called A New Way to Think, and it's available now. It's great talking to you.
Thank you very much for interviewing me.